Welcome, I'm Jan Marini, the founder of Jan Marini Skin Research. I am here with Dana. Dana is actually a student in college, a college student in Los Angeles at Loyola Marymount.
Yeah.
I can say that quite right. And she's here for a consultation. So Dana, if there was something you could change or improve about your skin, what would it be?
It would definitely be my blackheads and whiteheads. I have a lot of blackheads and whiteheads under the skin. And to me, it really bugs me. Like, it's not really noticeable to other people, but for me, it really bugs me. And sometimes they do come out. Like, I'm kind of breaking out right now a little bit. And it's usually around my chin and sometimes on my cheeks. And sometimes I have bumps on my forehead. I don't think they're blackheads and whiteheads, though, so I'm not really sure what that is.
And you say sometimes you do get breakouts on your forehead.
Mm-hmm. Or just anywhere around on my face.
Okay. So, did you have acne earlier? Did you have it in your earlier teenage years?
I actually didn't. My acne started my senior year of high school, so when I was about 17 or 18. And what happened was, it was all on my forehead. Like, the blackheads and whiteheads that were under the skin were all on my forehead.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I did was I just stopped using like anything to make, because my skin is very sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So when I use other products, it kind of like makes my skin worse, I feel like. So yeah.
Okay. So tell me, when you say your skin is very sensitive, what do you mean by that? What happens that makes you think it's sensitive?
The bumps, and then it gets really itchy and red.
Okay, so if your skin gets itchy and red, chances are you're having an allergic reaction or contact dermatitis. A lot of times people think they have sensitive skin because their skin breaks out.
Mm-hmm.
And actually it just means that either they have acne, or maybe the product they're using is exacerbating the acne, or they're just continuing to break out because the product is not doing anything one way or the other, but it's not necessarily helping the acne.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so tell me, what type of skin do you think you have in terms of, you think it's normal, combination, dry? How do you categorize it?
I would say dry.
Okay.
Normal to dry.
Okay.
In between that.
And where do you think you're dry?
Definitely my chin, my cheeks, and my forehead.
And what makes you think that they're dry? Do they peel? Do they?
Yeah, my forehead definitely peels a lot more than my cheeks and my chin.
Okay. And were you ever a smoker?
No.
Okay. How about sunbather?
Yes, I do like to tan.
Okay. And you said your acne started at around 17 or 18 years old. Now, prior to that, did you ever have any breakouts at all?
Rarely, like maybe like 1 or 2 pimples, like when it was my time of the month.
Okay. So let's talk about what you use currently. What do you wash with in the morning?
I just use Cetaphil.
Okay.
With the normal to dry face wash, and that's all I do.
Is it Cetaphil? Is it the bar? Is it the one that's in? It's like a lotion.
It's like the lotion.
Okay.
And I rarely moisturize my face, maybe once a week.
By the way, Cetaphil cleansing lotion is a really good neutral cleanser. So there's a lot worse things that you could be putting on your skin. Mm-hmm. So after the cleanser, what do you use? Anything at all?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Any sunscreen?
Rarely. No, I don't use sunscreen as often.
Okay. But you mentioned you use a moisturizer once or twice a week?
Yeah, and it's the Cetaphil moisturizer.
Okay. And when you use the Cetaphil moisturizer, do you use it at night or during the day?
During the night.
Okay. And what makes you use the moisturizer?
If I feel like my skin is too dry, I put it on, but I don't really like putting it on because then I feel like when I put it on, it makes my face oily.
Okay. So one of the reasons I'm asking all these questions is because Dana mentions that her skin is dry. Now, generally, if you put a moisturizer on dry skin, it just soaks it up and your skin is still dry.
Mm-hmm.
So if she's putting a moisturizer on and her skin feels oily, my tendency to think is your skin could be normal-leave-in combination, because if you treat it in a very normal way, it might actually have more oil than you think. So here's what happens. You have a dead layer. The outside of your skin, the stratum corneum, this is the layer that we touch all the time, that we obsess about in the mirror. You shed about 500 million cells a day, but they're microscopic. You're not even aware of it. And when those cells kind of slow down, or they're not shedding as rapidly, or even before they completely shed off, they're sitting there on the surface. And as they sit there, the longer they sit there, they're very dry because they're dead. And they harden and they cornify. And as a matter of fact, after you wash your face, sometimes probably your skin feels nice and soft, but then maybe 20 minutes later, it feels like everything's kind of tightening up.
Yeah.
And that's because that's that dry, dead layer. Now, if that dry, dead layer weren't there, your skin might feel entirely different. So sometimes it can be confusing and deceptive. So I think your skin is probably more normal, maybe even a little combination, but we'll see.
Okay.
Now, what do you do at night? Do you wash with the same thing?
Yes.
And anything that you do after that at night?
No.
Okay.
Sometimes I put on a toner, but I'm not sure what kind it is, but
when do you, so you don't recall a brand, but
no.
Do you recall where you bought it? Is it a drugstore product?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. And do you recall if it has anything in it, like salicylic acid? Does it say it's for acne?
Yeah, it says it's for acne.
Okay. So probably, if it's a toner for acne, generally those products have salicylic acid, which is not a bad thing to use. Do you notice that your skin is better or worse after you use a toner?
It's definitely way more shiny, but I don't usually put it throughout the day. Like, I usually do it at night after I do the Cetaphil, and then I put on that toner, and then I go to bed, just because I don't like how it kind of feels on my skin. But I like when I wake up the next day and how it looks.
Okay, so you say it looks a little shiny. So here's something else that happens. When you're producing oil and you have that dead, dry surface, it actually absorbs the oil. So your skin can look drier than it is because you don't see the oil. If that dead, dry surface were gone and salicylic acid removes some of that, then you're actually going to see more of a natural sheen, and your skin may be oilier than you think it is. So that's kind of what I'm suspecting. So tell me, what do you do, or what have you done in the past that you think makes your skin worse, or what have you done that you think makes it makes it better?
I definitely feel like when I put too much stuff on my face, or if it's very harsh, it makes my skin worse. Usually when I wear a lot of makeup, I break out a lot more.
And when you say a lot of makeup, you mean like foundation. So what type of foundation, if you're going to wear it, do you wear?
I use Mary Kay foundation.
Which one?
I know Mary Kay is like a skincare, but I'm not sure which one. Just one of her foundations.
Is it liquid or is it
more? Oh, it's liquid. Yeah.
Okay. So today, generally, most foundations are pretty non-acneogenic. But it used to be that a lot of foundations had ingredients in them that had a tendency to cause acne. And it's always really good to look at the ingredient listing and to get an idea if there's things in there that could cause you to break out. Now, you might not know what to look for, but it's a possibility that there's something in there that may be exacerbating your acne. There are foundations that are pretty neutral that won't exacerbate it one way or the other that you could wear. Okay. And for example, Clinique makes some good foundations.
Okay.
As you know, just as
good to know.
yeah. And they make a lot of different types for different skin types, so there's a lot to choose from. Okay, so have you ever been to a dermatologist for your acne?
No.
Okay. And what have you done? Do you feel like if I ask you what you do that you think makes it better, you think just using less?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the acne process. And this may be things that you already know, but I think it's helpful to kind of go through this because then you can visualize in your mind what's going on. So I mentioned to you that when you touch the outside of the skin, it's this dead layer, the stratum corneum, which at about 500 million cells a day. Well, when you look at a follicle opening, and this is what we obsess about, we look in the mirror and we say, oh my God, we've got these follicles, and there's something in there.
Yeah.
What you're looking at actually is the opening into a long hollow tube. It's only about as big around as the diameter of a hair. And I know when you look at these follicles, you're thinking to yourself, there's got to be this big cavern in there, because it's got to be full of stuff. Inside the follicle, this long hollow tube, it's actually lined with dead cells. And these dead cells are constantly shedding, very much like the cells that you have on the surface of your skin. And then at the bottom of your sebaceous gland, at the bottom of the follicle is your sebaceous gland. And your sebaceous gland produces oil. And one of the reasons you produce oil, it's not going to necessarily make you look younger, it's kind of annoying actually, is that the oil pushes the cells up to the surface, they sit there and they fall off. So even if you have really dry skin, you produce enough oil for this to take place. In people that have acne, we don't know why exactly, although it's believed that probably the tendency is hereditary. We haven't discovered the acne gene, but for whatever, and by the way, do you have brothers or sisters that have acne?
I have a brother. He did have a lot more breakouts than I did.
Okay. How about mom or dad? Do you remember them ever talking about having acne?
My mom, no.
Okay.
My dad, no.
Well, you can be the only person in your family that has acne or the only person that doesn't, and it can skip a generation. You know, you may have brothers or sisters or you may not, but we think there's a hereditary tendency. And so in people that have a tendency to acne, we don't know why, but for whatever reason, the cells in the follicle stick together. So instead of coming to the surface, they stick.
Mm-hmm.
And the beginning of that process is known as a microcomedone. Now, you can have microcomedones because they're microscopic little clumps of dead cells, and you can have perfect skin. It could take weeks, months, it could take a really long time for them to show up. And the average age at which a woman in the US begins to develop hips is 8 years old. The onset of puberty is defined by breast development, not menstruation. So when your breasts start to develop, you could be 10 years old, you're in puberty. And so a lot of times people have these little microcomedones, they don't even know it, their skin is great. Then when they're 11 or 12 years old, or they start to menstruate, all of a sudden they start to break out. And you think, oh, it's just happening now, but it can be because this process was going on. And this process could have been going on through your teenage years, and then for whatever reason, certain elements or certain factors might trigger more breakout when you get to be like 17 or 18. A lot of times people, their acne lessens at that point. Some people don't have acne as a teenager, they get acne in their 20s. Or it goes away and they get it again in their 30s and 40s. So there's all these different variations. But again, it starts with these cells sticking together. So you form this microcomedone, and it can progress in a number of directions. Now, one way it progresses, if the cells stick together, your follicle begins to dilate. You see that as an open follicle, as an open comedone, or a blackhead, clogged follicle, okay, which is some of the things that you see. Okay. That is actually the least inflammatory form of acne. It's the mildest form of acne, but it's still a form of acne. Acne is a term that describes a process. If you have one lesion, it's an acne lesion. Maybe you only get them once in a while. Very rarely, maybe you get them on a consistent basis. So you may have a mild form or a more moderate case of acne, but it's all acne. So it's a very mild form of acne. Now, when your follicles tend to close over and you have these cells sticking together in your follicle, the cells still continue to stick together and build up. And what happens is that P. acne bacteria gets trapped in the follicle. Now, the bacteria is harmless. Everyone has it. You can have very clear skin and have P. acne bacteria. But in the follicle, where there's less oxygen, when you have this cellular buildup, the oil loves this environment because there's less oxygen. And so what it does is it eats the oil that's trapped in there. And it feeds on the oil, and then it excretes this really corrosive fatty acid byproduct. So if everything stayed in your follicle, you'd never break out. But when this corrosive fatty acid byproduct begins to wear down your follicle walls, you might get a leak, a rupture, or a blowout. So if you get a leak, it means a little bit of material went to the outside, and it creates an inflammatory process, because acne is an inflammatory disorder. And you end up with like a red bump. Maybe it turns into a pustule. Okay, that's still a fairly mild form of acne. It's not as mild as just blackheads. If you have a rupture in the follicle, the side of the follicle kind of opens up and more material goes outside. It's deeper, and you could have a mini cyst, a nodular mini cyst, and that's a big one that's kind of hard underground. And it takes a long time to go away. It doesn't really come to a head. If the entire side of the follicle just kind of blows up, you end up getting really bad cystic acne, the really big cysts. And the inflammation is so deep, it's down at the dermis. And at the dermal level, it destroys collagen and elastin. As it makes its way to the surface, it destroys collagen and elastin, and you end up with scarring. So really bad cystic acne virtually always scars. Okay, so the good news is what you're experiencing is really pretty mild.
Yeah.
So what we have to do in order to address acne is, number one, we have to introduce something in the follicle that keeps the cells sticking together. We want to interrupt that process. Number two, we have to address P. acne bacteria. So if we can keep the colonies of P. acne bacteria to the point where they're non-existent, they're not eating the oil, then they're not excreting a fatty acid byproduct, and you're not getting breakouts. And then also, we need to also deal with the inflammatory aspect of acne. Okay? So, there's a couple of ways that we do this, and one of the very best tools that we have, and I don't know if you've ever used this before or not, but one of the very best tools we have is benzoyl peroxide.
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, benzoyl peroxide works because benzoyl forces peroxide into the follicle, it releases oxygen, and P. acne bacteria can't live in oxygen. So it kills it better than anything that has ever been invented. And that's a statement by the American Academy of Dermatology. And if you use it in the right percentage, if it works for you once, it'll work for you forever. You can't develop a resistance. So in terms of even people that have really much worse acne than you have, this is just one of our very, very best tools. And the good news is we work with a type of benzoyl peroxide that's not drying. We also combine it with another incredible tool for acne, gold standard, and that's retinol. And the nice thing about retinol, you're not going to worry about this right now, but it is amazing for keeping your skin looking young or making it look younger appearing. And most of the damage you're going to see in your lifetime, if you look at mom or dad or grandma and you think, okay, I guess everybody starts to get this kind of stuff at some point, but you just can't imagine it ever happening. Most of it is programmed in your skin before the age of 10 from sun exposure. And at least 50% is programmed into your DNA by the age of 20. So it takes 10, 20, 30 years to show up. So many times I hear people say, well, between the age of 20 and 30, I just didn't feel like my skin aged. And then all of a sudden it's like, they look in the mirror, literally wake up one morning and they're going, well, what is all this that's going on? So it really helps with that. And the other thing that we want to do in terms of interrupting the process for the cells sticking together is we want you to use something called BioClear. And BioClear is glycolic, salicylic, and azelaic acid. And it has the ability, because of the small molecular weight, to actually get into the follicle, and it begins to break down the glue-like substance or cellular cement between cells. And not only that, but it resurfaces the appearance of the outside of the skin. So it makes your skin look, your pores and everything look really nice and small. And your skin look resurfaced. Even if you didn't have acne, that's one of the main things that I use to help people have skin, the texture and just the appearance of skin that's very refined and very smooth. And then finally, sunscreen. Now, this sunscreen is really going to be helpful because, first of all, let's just say that Dana had an oily skin. or combination skin, and her skin may end up being a little bit more oily than you think it is. It actually has the ability to have an almost unlimited capacity to absorb oil, but it won't absorb the actives and it won't absorb water. And on the other hand, if your skin is dry, it makes it look really soft and silky. So I always find people say, okay, I don't mind glowing, I just don't want to look oily. I don't mind looking dewy, I just don't want to look shiny. So you want your skin to have a really nice glow to it, and so that's kind of what we want to achieve. So it's going to be a very simple program. I'm going to have you using the bioglycolic facial cleanser, and the bioglycolic facial cleanser is actually almost the same consistency as your Cetaphil. Same base, except it has glycolic acid, and glycolic acid has a small molecular weight that it can actually get into the follicle. You can use the best cleanser in the world, they don't get into the follicle, the molecule is too large, but this can get in and it begins to break up follicular retention, and it can also help on the surface of the skin make your skin look a lot smoother and more refined. So the bioglycolic facial cleanser, having you use BioClear, our BioClear lotion, glycolic, salicylic, and azelaic acid, and then Duality. And Duality is a dual chamber product. So in one chamber it has the retinol, and the other chamber it has the benzoyl peroxide. This is a benzoyl peroxide that has actually been tested in weather in Alberta, Canada at 20 degrees below zero by Dr. Jaggi Rao, who is board certified in Canada, board certified in the US, head of the residency program, dermatology residency program at University of Alberta, and the CEO and founder of the Acne Clinics of Canada. And after the study, the patient's skin is more hydrated than before the study, so it doesn't dry. And it's also very anti-aging. So it's actually an adult acne product, but I think it'll be perfect for you. And then the SPF 33. Now, as you progress and as your skin gets clearer, and also as you move along in terms of getting older, then there may be other things that we'll do to add into your program. But right now, it's so important that you start using a sunscreen. What they've shown is that if you start using a sunscreen today, 5 years from now, your skin will actually look younger from a cellular standpoint than it does today. So you can reverse a lot of that damage. It's sort of like giving your skin a rest. So that's going to be an important part of your program. But as time goes on, we can also adjust and add to it. And I'm going to be checking back with you. My assistant's going to check with you in about 4 days. And then I'm going to check with you in 2 weeks, and I'm going to keep on working with you. If we need to modify your program, we need to adjust it. There are things that we can do that are a little bit more aggressive, because I'm very, very anal when it comes to acne. I want people to be completely clear. I want you to be able to look in the mirror, stretch your skin, feel it. If you feel any bumps, anything at all, then we're not there yet. So we want to get you to that point where you feel like you're just completely clear, and also where you're consistent and not breaking out. And one of the issues with breakouts, even if you don't have loss of tissue, like an actual indentation from scarring, is that breakouts tend to leave what's called post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. So you get left with little spots where it looks kind of purplish, brownish, whatever. And so the best way not to have that is just to not break out. Now, there are things that we're going to be doing that will help that to go way faster. Okay? So any questions for me?
No.
Okay, well, I'm excited to see how
actually,
it works.
I do have one question.
Sure.
How often do I use all of the products?
Okay, well, what you're going to do is you'll clean your skin day and night. And in terms of the Duality that has the benzoyl peroxide, we're going to start off just using that one at night.
Okay.
And also the BioClear product just at night.
Okay.
But in about a week, we'll probably use the BioClear product day and night. We may actually increase the usage of the Duality, but we want to give it just 2 to 4 weeks or so to see how your skin is settling in, because in 4 weeks, if your skin is completely clear, we'll just keep using it every night. If we need to go to day and night, and there's even a stronger version that we can go to if we need to. And sunscreen you just use during the day.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty simple program.
Okay. Perfect.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Great. Well, I'm excited to see how it goes. I can't wait to talk to you in a couple of weeks. And thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.